Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Geek First Podcast, a Patreon's Pick edition.
Oh,
Oh boy, I am the protein-filled Trav Snail.
nice. I am the Adam Hart caster, Dylan Musk.
I am the shadow of his former shadow, Kirklin Patzer. That's a
Wow,
Snowpiercer quote for you.
spoiler! Oh my god. Ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't guessed, because Kirkland spoiled already, or it's the title of this episode, we, in honor of, COVID, as you can hear, we're still very far apart. We hope all of you are safe, washing those hands, keeping social distancing, using skip the dish, anything to get you through the day, and hopefully we're one of those things. But what we do here on Geek First now, because as you've seen, all these games are getting delayed, all these movies are getting delayed, so what are we going to do? We're going to talk about news here and there, but we're going to jump into the past and talk about things of old. And today, we're talking about Snowpiercer. This was recommended to us because on Patreon right now at any tier, usually it's the $25 tier, you can recommend a movie or a TV show, anything for us to commentary track or watch along or do a retrospective of. But right now we've opened up to all tiers. And Blake, I hope I'm saying your last name right, Blake Alcantara, Alcantara. So Alcantara, Blake
Oh
Alcantara.
no, you shouldn't have tried this many times, Travis. You just gotta own it.
Blake Alcantara. Yeah, we'll
I don't
see.
have it in front of me, so I'm
That's
not even
true.
gonna try.
But he recommended, he did a lot of movies, but one of the big ones was Snowpiercer. And we had talked about that a few times, me and Dylan, because you go back, we did our Oscars prediction, and me and him were both massive fans of Parasite. So, as always, these are old movies. So, we're going to give our quick overalls first, but we're getting into spoilers right away. I'm not going to give you the countdown. But, Dylan, I'm going to start with you because, we had talked about this previously in a cast. So, I'll start with you, and then you can hand over to Kirkland, and we'll off to the races. So, thank you, Blake, for giving us this movie. And if anyone else wants to make us watch anything, now's the time. Go to Patreon. Like I said, any tier, you get stuff early right now. Howard the Duck is up there early. Catwoman's up there early. Commentary tracks. You got Suicide Squad,
Just the
Mortal
best
Kombat.
movies,
Oh,
the highest quality movies.
yeah. Everyone keeps, Blake, I will say, probably gave us the best quality one, but these are what the fans want, And then next month is Spider-Man for commentary tracks. So we got tons of stuff. And as always, just go down in the description down below for your video and audio feeds. The dollar tier gets you, that's the best tier yet, gets you the ad-free shows. So we appreciate all the support you guys have been giving us this time. So now we're going to talk about Snowpiercer. Dylan, what do you think about the second film you've seen of Bong Joon-ho's filmography?
Yeah, so since seeing Parasite, oh, actually, even before this, just this movie was on Netflix for I want to say like a couple of years, and it always kind of grabbed my attention, but not quite enough to click on it. But ever since seeing Parasite, now I just want to go back and dig through his
Mm-hmm.
entire discography, filmography rather, and just watch like all his movies. So yeah, this one is kind of on my radar already, and then yeah, when I saw it was a Patreon one, I was like, okay, sweet, I'll just wait and then watch it for that. So yeah, definitely excited going into this one. All these other movies we've been talking about, like Cocktail and, Shack Steel, we're going to do. Never heard of these movies in my entire life. So it's kind of nice to actually have a movie that, oh, sweet, I already wanted to watch. This is already on my backlog list. So it kind of worked out well. But yeah, I just finished it 10, 15 minutes ago. I'll preface as well by saying that whatever player I was watching it on didn't have subtitles, so there's like a couple scenes where I don't know what they were talking about unless there's not supposed to be subtitles, but I'm pretty sure there is.
Yeah,
Is there?
Travis will fill us in because I definitely didn't get that either on my
Yeah,
copy.
I'll let you all know.
Okay. Yeah, there's only I feel like one kind of more monologue scene that I feel like would be missing anything.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, there is like a translate, like an in-world translator that does some of it, but even that was really quiet, so it's hard to hear. But
Yeah.
anyway, no, I really enjoyed this movie. It's funny, me and Travis just reviewed The Platform like a few weeks ago, and I feel like
Mm-hmm.
this movie reminds me a lot of that. And that it's just like this really high concept, dystopian, strange, very gritty world with just like a small cast of characters. And yeah, it's just like a story that is like the characters are finding out information and trying to learn more and making progress alongside the viewer. You don't really know anything either. And I thought it was really interesting. It was a lot of fun. I think there is like obviously this movie, much like Parasite, is critiquing class, like social class and things like that. And I think it does it in a good way. It's not as quite as masterful as Parasite in my mind, but I don't even know if there's really too much room to compare this to Parasite because they're very different movies. The only thing ties them together is, well, one actor and
Yeah.
director. So, um, I overall I really enjoyed it. I'd say the only thing that I didn't care for was the action. There's a lot of action in this movie, and I thought it was pretty poorly done. Just like cinematography or even just like the choreography, whatever it was. I just wasn't really into the action scenes, and there was more of them than I was expecting. Not that I really had much expectations going into this movie, but yeah, other than that, I really enjoyed it. I don't know. It's like I've rewatched Parasite, and I know I got a lot out of those rewatches. There's a lot of attention to detail or like cinematography that's like symbolic or is telling much more than like what is just being said in those scenes. So I can't say the same for this movie because I only watched it once, but I will definitely watch this movie again, probably within like a couple of years or like 1 year, 2 years, something like that, just to see how it hits me a second time and when I know what it's building towards in the end. But overall, I really enjoyed it.
Cool. Yeah. I had never heard this movie until got Patreon, and I didn't know what year it came out. I didn't know Chris Evans was in it. I did not know like anything about it. I th- I honestly didn't know too much about like the director himself because I haven't seen Parasite yet. I know it's gotten
Shame
a
on
lot of
you.
buzz. I know you guys have been hyping it up, and then people at work and just other people in my social circles, they've just been like praising this movie. I haven't heard a single person
Your
like say
grandma.
anything negative about that movie. So I am definitely excited to try to check it out. And but yeah, this movie, like I said, I had no expectations going into it. I didn't know what the story was like. I didn't even read like the synopsis getting into it. So it was definitely an interesting like original movie. It's not anything, I don't know. It's definitely no superhero movie. It's not like other movies that have been released on like a similar theme or anything like that. So that was kind of fun. It definitely reminded me, actually, now that I'm saying that, it kind of reminds me of like a Hunger Games or something. I don't know, trying to think of another example, another just dystopian type film, right?
Yeah,
Where,
yeah.
like Dylan said, like there's different social circle or the like hierarchy of just the upper class people and the tail, as they were called in this film. It was really interesting. I had no idea what to expect. The Just like how the movie starts and like the tail end of the train, and then as it progresses throughout the train, it like kind of like just totally shifts like the color tones. Obviously, it's tying in with like the different people that are living there. As you get like closer to the front of the train, you get like more upper class, and it was really cool seeing like the different shifts in aesthetic and just the different people that you would find there. I thought that was really cool because right at the beginning it was really dark. The stream I had was pretty it was pretty bad, and so it was just dark and like grimy, and I was like, oh man, it's gonna be a long 2 hours if the whole film's like that. So I was definitely surprised when it was shifting around, and there were certain areas that were super colorful, and it just totally was like you're watching a different movie than what you were starting in the beginning. So I really like just the different transitions, I guess you'd call it, and like the different carts and stuff. That stuff was cool. Like Dylan already mentioned, I did not get subtitles, so I wasn't sure if I had missed like a few important things with the I don't even know what his name was, the guy that was like the engineer, kind of opening all the doors for them, the druggie.
Yeah, it's what
Damn,
is
I'm
it
gonna
like
pull up IMDb
Ham or
here.
Ham? I can't remember what it was.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
damn, I think it was it?
I'll
So
get
yeah,
it.
I wasn't too sure if I was missing anything there. I'm sure Travis will tell us anything important. But like you, Dylan, I definitely want to rewatch this film. I feel like there's just certain like symbolism type things and certain scenes that might like come out in a second watch. And it sounded like with you doing the rewatch on Parasite, you kind of got some of that out. And of course, it being the same director, you'd probably want to keep this a similar thing. But overall, I did like it. I don't know. I wasn't sure if it was just like the certain stream I had, or the fact I didn't have any subtitles, or like there were some scenes that were really dark and quiet that I feel like I missed something. So I definitely feel like I do need to watch it again to fully get like a solid rating on it. But overall, I definitely would watch it. I'm surprised I missed it, honestly. Like this came out in 2013. That was that was quite a long time ago, actually. Now that I'm
Yeah, it
thinking
wasn't
about
a
it.
big hit or anything like that. It was kind of
No.
it kind of has like a cult status, I'd say, because he's obviously big from the country he comes from. So I think it was more just kind of like look at this guy who is like a really good foreign director doing something. This was his first American film, I think it's his first or second. So I think it's one of those where no, yeah, it is his first because Oak chose his second, and then Parasite's his third. So yeah, it's very culty as far as its following goes.
Yeah. So overall, though, like if you like those dystopian type films, and like I said, like it was definitely original. I've definitely not seen a movie like that, other than like the fact that it being like a dystopian type world. Like just I
Hmm.
don't know, the world it's set up. I thought it was pretty cool, and tying it into like a real world situation that like I mean realistically it could get to that, right? Like trying to solve the global warming crisis, and then I don't know. The opening was working for me. I don't know. It didn't seem too far fetched.
Yeah, so I am a fan of his. I've seen this before. I'd seen Ocho. That's on Netflix if you want to check it out. And then I also have seen Parasite. And I have seen The Host a long time ago. So I've seen like I guess a fair amount of his films, but not every film I've not seen. I feel like the past 2-3 years I've just finally been getting into like foreign films, and even then there's still so many I have to get into. So I I I'm gonna break it because this is why we were doing this remotely because COVID, and all we do is get a message from Kirklin, drop my phone, rip, right in the middle as I'm talking. That's what we do, folks here. So. Yeah, so I'm a fan of his. Obviously, Parasite. I was very happy that won. This film I'd seen before. I think I don't know if I saw the year came after or the year came out. I think it was the year after, just because I think it was one of those that just pops up on a lot of year-end lists of like you gotta see this or movies you have missed. And I like Chris Evans, but this was the time where I'd finally started to come around on him because I felt like even and now that I go back into his career, like I just watched The Losers the other day and just even clips Fantastic Four. He actually is a really quite a good actor. He got Knives Out, but I just got so used to him as Cap. I felt like he was just he was doing that role all right, and that's even the era where I thought he was just fine as Cap. I feel he doesn't become great until Winter Soldier, which is like a few years off of this. So I was just kind of all right. What is this film? And I remember really enjoying it, and I remember it has similar vibes as when I rewatched again this time. I like the one aspect of like it feels very video gamey the way the plot is laid out. Like each film has sections, and I know people say, "Oh, it's like Act One, Act Two, Act Three," but it really to me has like a lot of miniature acts. It feels almost play like, and especially with the setting, you could honestly do a like a Broadway stage play of this because you would just have to have some sound, making things look like some things are shaking. But it is just little sections where okay, we start with our main characters, and then they have a goal about like getting to this next part of the train. Then they got to get to the next part of the train, and then they meet this new character that takes them there, and then there's this obstacle. So whether it's kind of like a video game, kind of the next level, or kind of like a play, I like there is an Act One, Act Two, Act Three, but to me it feels like there's like an Act Six. It is like Dylan said, there's not too much crossover with Parasite, but I think he's definitely hitting those themes again of the upper versus the lower class. He's hitting the is this right? Is it should we treat the lower class this way? Is it something that even if they deserve to be there, or if it's just the way life goes, or is the whatever the top working class, yeah, they're up there, the upper class is up there, but it's because they work so hard, are they up there? Like that's what I like. Like he tackles all these themes, even in Parasite. Parasite, I think, is definitely more skewed towards the lower class, but then I feel like it takes a turn to go, okay, even what they're doing is wrong. So I feel they kind of do that in this one. This one's a bit more fantastical because it's a sci-fi film. Like Dylan said, there's quite a few action scenes, which I think I enjoyed for the most part. I think I enjoyed just because the different sets and the ideas of them, especially we'll get into. I know there's spoilers, but the initial just breaking in like out of the tail. I really like that setup, and it's what Kirkland talked about too. I've talked about this recently when I reviewed Onward. It's just like to me when you start in a kind of sci-fi esque movie or a superhero movie or fantasy. To me, yeah, characters and story are very important, but the thing you got to nail to me in the first 15, 20 minutes is the world. I remember sitting in the theaters falling in love with Lord of the Rings with that, opening, and then you see Shire. If you don't have those moments, same thing with Star Wars, even to the MCU to effect, is just you have to fall in love with the world or buy into it, and you do buy into it right away. Yeah, they give you all this text and like, oh, this is what's going on, but right when you get in the train, you meet the people, you see the situation, I feel like, okay, it's a living, breathing world, where especially it must have been hard because it's just going to be a closed set most of the time. It could have honestly came off looking pretty cheap. I think there's some where it doesn't look cheap, but I think the action sometimes is stylized the way it is just to cover for a budgetary thing because the film budget is 40 million. So that's a relatively lower film budget around in the like 2000s. So it's not that high, and I feel it kind of shows. So maybe they could have less than that, but I don't dislike any of the scenes. I think there's a few things that I'm not a fan of near the end, not even story points, just kind of some eye rolls of, okay, I don't know if this really needed to be applied in there again, but we'll get to that. And then there's just another thing is like Jamie Bell, the guy who plays Edgar. I like him enough. I just never really liked him, and I feel like he's kind of miscast, especially with the information we get later on. I felt that actor needed to be maybe a bit younger. I feel the age between Chris Evans and him doesn't
Yeah.
really line up. So for that to Chris Evans makes a pretty big story and there's a big point to do with this Edgar character, but to me hearing the story has to kind of have to do with age. It takes me out of a little bit, I don't know if I buy that. So I have some cons, but like kind of it sounds weird to say that because Parasite I don't really have any cons, so that's why I'm saying that like these cons are pretty minor. But I think no matter what this guy does so far, from what I've seen, I've not seen everything Bond's done, but everything I've enjoyed or really like. He reminds me, and it's not just because he's foreign. He just reminds me a lot of Hideo, the way that Hideo likes to tackle the Hideo Kojima, I guess I should say, for people not like the wrestler Hideo Itami or anything like that. Like Hideo Kojima will tackle these really big themes, and they will be sci-fi and stuff like that, but also they can feel very quaint and very small. And Parasite does that. This does that, even though it's kind of a sci-fi action movie. So yeah, I really enjoyed it on a second. This is the only time I saw it. I don't know why I'd never watched it again. I think it's just it is a heavier movie. I think you need to be in the mood for it. I don't think it's one where Parasite, to me, it gets heavy, but there's a lot of comedy in it. So I find myself rewatching that. I've already seen that 3 times, so that kind of shows the difference. Maybe I just like it more. But yeah, I would recommend this to if you like his work, if you kind of like sci-fi dystopian movies, if you like what Dylan alluded to, kind of this is like a popular geek for his genre, like people stuck in a location. This is like 50 people stuck in a train, but it still has that Saw aspect of like, we get into this room. Okay, what does this door do? What does this trigger do? Things like that. So it has like that kind of murder mystery, opening the box, finding out what's next. So if you like any of that, I would recommend it. I don't know if I would not recommend it to anybody if you don't like. There's some gross stuff, so maybe if you're not into some movie that has like a gross or depressing feel, maybe that's it. So that's all I would say for recommendation.
Yeah,
Solid.
Shay hated it.
She hated it. Wow, I want to hear like what was like the Cliff Notes version why she hated it.
Well, she was playing Animal Crossing the entire time, so she was
Okay.
definitely half paying attention
That's a
to every
stark
scene she looked
contrast
at. Every time she looked at the screen, she's like, "This is stupid."
There's like
I
no
don't like
there's no
this.
social ladder in Animal Crossing.
Yeah, fair enough.
It's funny, Travis, that you when you were talking about Chris Evans, you mentioned Fantastic Four, and I just realized that Jamie Bell also is in a
Mhm.
Fantastic
He's in
Four
the new
as
one,
the
isn't he?
Thing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Fan
that's kind of funny.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
dear.
Unfortunately, he hasn't got his superhero, reboot try again. The way Chris Evans became Captain America, he hasn't got that
Right,
yet.
but that
Maybe
took
one
like
day.
a decade. So
Yeah. Where
he'll
do you
get
guys?
there eventually.
When
Yeah.
I saw the Jamie Bell
He'll be an
character,
X-Men
it
someday.
tripped me out because I couldn't remember what I like saw him from. Because I was just looking through his IMDb right now. It was totally King Kong. That's
Me
totally
too,
what
yeah.
I was
Oh
thinking
yeah.
of.
Yeah, he's a guy like
Jimmy.
I like Jamie Bell enough. I've just never seen anything for me to love the actor or get excited. He always just brings kind of to me the same quality in every role. I like him. I just think one, the age, and I guess I don't know if where we want to start with this movie, any points you have, but to me the age of when they reveal the story, because I had seen it before, so I knew the story, but just even hearing it again, I think you need someone a little actor, not super young, but just a little younger of an actor.
No, I agree. Because like what's Chris Evans' character's age supposed to be in this? Like 34, I think.
He said
Yeah, 17 and
did say
17.
yeah.
Yeah. So and then so he was like fairly like I don't know like a late teen when it's revealed that he was like what trying to eat Edgar, right?
Yeah, he's at least 18.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. I definitely agree with you though. I feel like they could have used like an actor that was I don't know at least looked younger than him. Like I know he doesn't have like an old face, but I don't know what I'd describe it as.
Well, I don't know. Maybe it's
There's
just
only 4 years
because-
apart of those two.
Yeah, exactly. Come on now.
I don't know. I think he looks pretty young, and I don't know. I mean, like everyone looks bashed up and dirty in this, so maybe they just look older naturally, unless you're like
Yeah.
obviously a 5-year-old kid or something.
It's got some dirt wrinkles.
But yeah, I don't know. I didn't really have a problem with his age, but if now that you guys mention it, like yes, he probably should have been a younger looking guy, but
Yeah.
no, it didn't really take me out of it. I have a question right off the bat, so maybe we can start there.
Let's do it.
So one thing that I was like, there was a lot of like world building stuff that like mostly got answered throughout the movie. Like obviously my main question was like why how is this train still going throughout this whole time? Why is it moving in the first place? Where is it going? Why is it never stopping? That sort of thing. Obviously that all gets answered in kind of a bit of a I don't know. It felt like it was kind of an information dump than
Yeah,
maybe like a genuine
exposition dump.
scene.
Yeah, this is
Yeah, like
this is the bad guy's motives. Yeah.
yeah, it's like let's watch this informative movie, kids. And I thought it was fine, but it did feel to me a bit on the nose. But
Hmm.
there was a couple questions I had about like the world. So my one thing that I was really curious about is like, okay, so there's a lot of people in this upper class like area or middle class, upper class, whatever you want to call it, and they have like their rooms, like they have like a club and they have like a little sauna room and stuff like that. But I don't really understand like where do they sleep? Like I didn't see any sort of rooms or sleeping quarters, so I thought that was a bit weird. And then the other thing was when we come across Nam was his name, right? Nam is the name
Yeah,
of
Nam's the name. Yeah.
yeah, Nam, and then the girl Yona, I guess that's what IMDb is telling me. Yona and Nam, they're like in these little pods,
Hmm.
and I didn't understand that. Like, were they like cryogenically frozen in there? Were they just like under some sleep, like some sort of sleeping drug that makes them like I do you guys understand like why like how they're
Yeah,
just chilling in those little pods? I didn't really get that
yeah.
because there's like a bunch of those on the wall. Like it's not just those two.
Oh, there's
So
quite a few, and it didn't seem like there was any like cryogenics going on or anything. They were just like in like a filing cabinet. It's like pretty dry. I don't know how they're getting sustenance or anything like that. Yeah,
yeah.
definitely a little question mark on that scene.
Do you have a theory, Travis, on what was
No,
going on there?
not really, because I kind of honestly I forgot that had happened. So we get introduced. They're almost like in the cabinets where you'd store bodies in like a morgue or something like
For
that.
sure, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know what the deal is because and they kind of know of him, right? Already they kind of know that he might be addicted to some drugs. They know he could have, like kind of do some hacking. So I
Mm,
wonder if it's something they had heard through legend, if he used to be at the tail and he got brought up there, and if he got brought up there, why is he up there? Because most of the people that get brought up to the tail, it is just to work, right? For the most part,
yeah.
it's just, and maybe they might live a better life, like the violinist, right? Like clearly, I imagine you when we see him the next time. First time he's all, he's looking homeless, he's looking beat down, he's looking hungry. Next time we see him, he's clean, nice suit, looking a bit more happier. So most of the time, the people go up, it's either to work like those children on the train or the violinist, and they look better. Where him, I don't know why he would have went up. Maybe they use him. He's kept alive for just in case the skills he's good at is required. Maybe
Mhm.
that's it. Of like, okay, a violinist they might use every day for class or to hear music for somebody, but this hacker we may not have any need. But if we ever need for him, let's just keep him in this like. Not the tail, so like he's not in danger, but also not somewhere good where I don't know, we don't
Yeah.
really want him there. That's the only thing I kind of thought. But for the actual like
Then
location, I don't
yeah.
know.
Why is Yona in there? Like, because as far as we know, she doesn't really have a purpose, or like I don't want to say a purpose, but she doesn't have like a task that they need
Yeah,
her to do. Like she was born in there, and they just kind of stuff her in there.
maybe. I'm not
So
sure if that's like
yeah.
a hey, if I'm gonna help you out, you have to keep her alive. It's the same. I guess it depends because we kind of get it contrasts because we get to see. I think the guy's name's Ron or Ronald, the violinist, right? Like
Hmm.
his wife can play too, and then they beat her up and pretty much just break her hands to stop
Yeah.
that. So they just want one. So you would think, oh, maybe they would just kill this girl and take the option away, but I'm not sure if it's so risky. And they don't really shed any light on that more. And as far as like his dialogue, like talking wise, there's not much of that. He's just usually throwing some barbs. He talks a lot at the end about like his actual plan of getting out and stuff like that and what the idea is. But as far
Yeah.
as he doesn't, in my recollection, I don't know because he actually doesn't talk that much in this movie till the very end. I don't think they shed any light on
Okay.
what he was doing. Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, I was just wondering
Let me see if there's any theories.
if I had missed that or if it was just kind of an unexplained thing. But yeah, I mean that was the only thing. Like I don't know, I just found like there was parts I found a little strange, like the fact that there's a entire train car dedicated to like these tiny little kiddie pools that people can like chill in. Like I don't know, I just feel like I was trying to like think really specifically about like okay, what is the purpose of everything? Obviously, they go through one train car and it's like the one that purifies the water. They go through one, it's like an arboretum and it just has all this garden like these gardens and plant life, and obviously that's understandable why they have that. So there was just some as well that were just very random and seemingly useless. And I guess that's kind of the point is that the upper class have all these train cars that they don't need at all, and then all the people at the tail only have like one train car to just stuff them all together. So maybe that's the point. Maybe that's the point, is that there is all these useless ones that these upper class people have where they really don't need them, and there's like one or two people just kind of chilling in them doing nothing. But
Mhm.
yeah, I don't know. That was one thing. I want to quickly talk about the action aspects of it, because yeah, I don't know if maybe it was just me who wasn't really into it, but I think for me it's something I've brought up a few times on Geekverse, is like shaky cam and action scenes. Like I totally get the purpose of shaky cam, but feel like for me it's really hard for it to be effective, because it's like, if there's like a camera that's like really just zoomed in on a character's face and they're just doing some nice acting, like Chris Evans in this movie gets a lot of that kind of stuff. Like I'm usually pretty invested in the character. I'm like watching them act, watching the character do whatever. But when there's just like shaky cam going in on an action scene, like it's just so distracting to me. And especially like I think it was like the first like big brawl in this movie, I couldn't help but notice that the shaky cam was like specifically in like a figure eight formation. So it just felt very I don't know, ingenuine. It was just like fabricated, and I don't know, it didn't really get across that like panic that it's supposed to. So
Yeah.
that was probably my main thing, like why I didn't really like the action. I just found it kind of annoying, just because I find shaky cam generally annoying.
Yeah, I wonder if
Yeah.
they were going for that because the train aspect, right? And just kind of always unease, it's kind of that way if you're on a train, it's shaking. I didn't mind that so much, even though I'm with you. I'm not a big fan of shaky cam for the most part. I think there's a few times it worked, like some of the Bourne movies. But
Mm-hmm.
for me, it was just some of the cutting and editing in the fights. It kind of has that mixed martial arts, like kung fu old school movie style editing as
Yeah.
far as action, which can work, but I think it has to work in the scenes, and I don't like them. I think, like, because I feel like they kind of go for some stylized action in this movie, and there's a line, because when it's something so serious, which I feel this movie's covering, I don't know if I need it, because it kind of takes me out of it a little bit, because it reminds me, oh, we're in a movie, in the sense like we're doing something that looks really cool, where I feel maybe in other movies, especially like Parasite, it has that, but it feels a bit more natural. So for me, that's my only action or complaint, is it kind of would take me out sometimes when it was really stylized. Like just many times where it would just be like maybe falling a weapon, it does like a quick cut and it goes to the ground, and a quick cut to the guy's face, like just like very, like I said, old school kung fu, and that's the stuff that would take me out. I don't think anything in the action was bad. I particularly really like the axe action fight scene with all the guys, and they're just looking creepy, and the torches.
Yeah.
I think that's really well done. That's a fun set piece. But the actual action, and I don't think it's bad, but that was I was not like a massive fan of it. So.
Right.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you, Dylan. Like it seemed like there were certain times that like when the shaky cam was going off, it just seemed like a little bit off from, I don't know, just a different like like action scene that was going on. That it had the shaky cam, but it wasn't just like choreographed or something. I don't know if that's a better word for it, but it just, I don't know,
Yeah.
like it seemed very ingenuine and not just like a chaotic
It
moment.
yeah, it didn't feel rough.
Yeah,
Like it felt like very like it felt like, hey, this camera operator was told to go in this specific
yeah.
movement, or like whatever dolly machine, whatever the fuck it's called, it was on. It was like set to do this like particular motion or
Yeah,
something.
no, for sure.
Yeah.
And I'd say like overall, all the action, I probably like half of it I really liked, and half of it was just like all right. I don't know. I
Mhm.
wasn't too loving it, too hating it. But
Yeah.
just touching upon what you said, Travis, how like it seemed like a very like old school like kung fu Bruce Lee type movie. Just like the way that they would like have the camera like zoom in on a certain thing and then like
Mm-hmm.
back to a character's face. I don't know what it was, man. I love that shit. I eat that I eat that stuff up. I was like, man, this just reminds me of like Kill Bill or something, just
Well,
like
see,
over the top.
it does, and
Like
that's where I feel in Kill Bill. It really fits, because there are some serious moments, but I'd say the majority of that movie is very tongue in cheek, very knows what it is. It's very kind of like spaghetti, like ninja assassin movie. Where
yeah.
this is, we're talking about eating babies, and we're talking about kids being kidnapped. Like it feel like to me in Kill Bill, the only super serious moments in Kill Bill is when she gets killed at a wedding. Spoilers for Kill Bill, and when she actually goes to confront Bill. The rest of the movie, there's serious moments, but it's all always like surrounded by comedy, where this like
Yeah.
I don't even know if they really go for comedy. I think they kind of go for comedy with Nam a little bit at times, just to his reaction or the daughter's reaction, but to me it's very serious. So when we get in those fight scenes, I also feel that maybe they gave it that style because it was a lower budget film, so there's not much you could do with it, so maybe give it that style. Or knowing Bong, he might just really like that, but that's why it took me out, because I don't mind it, but I think there's a time and place, and I think for me it would take me out of it. Of like, I almost don't want to enjoy. I want to enjoy the action scene, but I want to enjoy it from the craftsmanship, not so much as like, oh, these guys are having a great fight in this like really depressing train.
Yeah. No, for sure. And like just like stuff like that where it just seems like a little wacky and like I don't know, like just placed in kind of like a weird
Hmm.
setting. I just like got vibes. I'm like, oh, this is like a foreign film for sure. Like I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just like it reminded me of like an anime or something. How there's just like a certain like random thing that happens in like the middle of like a serious scene. I would just get those vibes. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
this is definitely like a foreign type film.
There's a
Is
Yeah.
he
lot of
from
like
Korea? Is that
flying
is that where he's
kicks and
from?
stuff.
Yeah, he's
He's from South
yeah,
Korea.
and this was
Oh,
a Korean film as well. Like it's technically like
oh,
released in North America and funded, but it's still considered like a foreign film and stuff like that. It's
I
a
see.
gray
Okay.
area, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah, and the other thing
The
I was gonna
other
oh, you go ahead, Dylan.
Yeah, I was just gonna comment quickly on the one like the action stuff. I was usually fine with it. The one that really bothered me was the like gunfight that's happening between Chris Evans and like the head bodyguard. They're doing like
Yeah.
this fight that reminded
Oh,
me of like Wanted in terms of how over the top it is, where they're like shooting hundreds of meters away, like through these glass windows, and they're somehow like sniping each other in the head, but then like the glass will block some shots and not other ones, and then it
oh.
lasts like 2 minutes, even though like if the train kept turning in circles, it would hit itself. Like it just was. And I mean the CGI of like outside like the mountains and stuff was generally kind of bad in this movie, so that whole scene just looked really off to me. So that was the only one that was like yikes, but the rest of it was pretty serviceable. It sounds like you guys kind of agree with that scene at least.
Well,
Yeah, no, for
yeah.
sure.
Yeah,
I
and
remember
just
watching that. I'm like, is this guy going in circles? Like, where's this train?
and just to me, like that was one of my cons in general. Just that bodyguard in general, because he was another one. See, this is
Yeah.
where I will shout. This is what I was gonna say is the Tilda Swinton character. To me, reminds me of kind of what Kirkland, somewhat like an anime, like maybe a little kooky in the middle of all this drama. But for me, she hit that fine line of being serious, but could kind of be like over
Mm-hmm.
serious and very cartoony. To me, it was like okay, that's the perfectness. And then other times where this bodyguard, this show felt a little too John Wicky, and that's where the John Wick stuff. That's where to me that fits in that type of movie because it is very serious. This guy got his dog killed, but then the rest of the movie they're going like really like 80s action, like oh you think I'm back, I'm thinking I'm back. Like it's Keanu being really over the top, right? And that's where it's like I feel the last half really does get over the top. Same thing. It's Mike Condon brought up his overall. It's like I didn't like the whole explanation of you were the chosen one, you were this. It just felt very like same
Yeah.
thing, like final film, final video game boss, bad level as far as it's not bad, it's all fine, but it's just we've been here 100 times, and it's just I'm gonna sit down and tell you everything. And I guess like it's tough, right? Because in this movie, you kind of need that. You need the rules established, and you need to find out what this character's been on the journey. But I just wish there was some natural more way they could have done it. But the bodyguard, I really hated at the end. So they do this whole thing where, yeah, we talk about the shooting, and they end up fighting. He ends up meeting with them, and he almost kills the girl, but then, or so he almost kills the dad. The girl goes to kill him, and Chris Evans, which I like his character development, kind of kills the bodyguard for her, right? In a way of like she doesn't have to take that upon herself that she took a man's life. He gets the knife, kills him, but he doesn't kill him because like it is like maybe only half an hour, but it feels like 8 hours later. He's like, huh? And he looks down, he has a knife, and he like pulls it out. He's like, and then he's just walking like the Terminator over, and then
Yeah.
we get like a face down of him and Nam in the final sequence, and it just felt
Yeah.
like he can like, especially because the girl they set up that girl that Ed Harris has, the I can't remember her name, but she's like his like servant or whatever. She's like maybe
Yeah.
number 2, right? They could have set up her and Non having this big fight. So for him to like come back and like, oh, he almost killed him, but no, he almost killed his daughter, but no. But then later on, half an hour, I was like, oh, but he's back. It just again that felt a little cheesy and kind of tongue in cheek. So that's why I guess like I like the second half for the revelations, but I prefer the more gritty to me, really realistic half of the. I feel it is kind of like what Dylan talked about. Once we start going room to room, it is fun to see, but there is also an element of like, why are some of these rooms here? And it is, I get it, is fun. And I don't mind it having a nightclub like
Yeah.
trolley, right? But at the end of the day, I guess these people are partying 24/7, or is there a part where they literally just turn the lights and play Jenga? I don't know. Like it just like there are some questions which are fine. That's a world building, but that's where there were kind of like maybe some a little too much tongue in cheek for me at
Yeah.
times.
I think that's where like some of those rooms feel like an amusement park, or like Travis said, like a video game level
Mm-hmm.
or something, right? Like it's not maybe not super genuine. It shows to Dishonored, they would all those rooms would have a purpose.
Oh
It's not
yeah.
just yeah. Anyway, no, it's funny that you say that because I agree. Like that bodyguard he is just like a very John Wick kind of guy, very emotionless. And I think the main girl that Tilda Swinton plays, She's I totally agree with your assessment, Travis. That she kind of reminds me of whatever that character's name is, Elizabeth Banks' character in Hunger Games, like, right, where she's
Yeah,
like
totally.
kind of in
Yeah.
charge of stuff and like has a role, and she is like very over the top and kooky, but then at the same time she can be serious and like kind of terrifying at times. But obviously that's a young adult and this is very dark, so it's kind of a different contrast there. But even her, like, because she's kind of the one you get the most backstory on, other than maybe the head honcho of it all. But even her, like, what does her daily life look like? Because all you see from her is like she goes to make this speech and then she's like getting dragged through the layers. So like, what is she doing? On like Saturday at like 5 p.m. Like, I don't know. I didn't feel like there was a whole lot given to the upper class in general in terms of like what their life is like. Like, we're seeing them partying and stuff, but you spend a lot of time with the tail train and you get to see what their life is like on a day-to-day basis and all the stuff and where their food comes from and all this. But I didn't feel like we get that same thing. And I hate to compare to Parasite, but I think that's where that movie shines, right? Because you get so much building on of the rich family and the poor family, and you see both ends of the spectrum like so much that it has this really strong contrast that the movie is constantly finding that balance between. And I just felt like this was maybe kind of one-sided, and as forget which one of you said it, but kind of like that, almost like the hero's journey where he's like the chosen one, kind of going all the way to the
Yeah.
front, which I guess is kind of built into the story. But
Well, and I'll compare it to, and I think this movie is better than that movie. But like you said, Dylan, we watched Platforms on Netflix. Go check that out and check out our review. One thing I do like about it is, and I think it loses its way in the middle, but you do see there's a similar thing. There's a similar train. It's not a train, but similar. You have a bottom class, a middle class, and then the upper class. And you at least it's not in depth because our characters, same thing as this, are the lower class, kind of mid lower stuff like that, and they're maybe trying to work their way up. But you at least get a vibe of the higher class or get a bit more from other characters about them. Where that's where I also said video gamey. When you're walking through these places, these people don't feel real. They just feel like in Blade Runner when it would be like, are you seeing holograms of people or like an animatronic? They don't feel like even when they're walking through, it doesn't seem like it was a comedic beat. But for Tillis to be like, oh, they won't bite. Don't worry about them. I feel like if you are a person, it feels like they're in a trolley and they have no idea that there's any other like lower or middle. Like they're just in their lives, and that's what I didn't like. That they didn't have much personality. Whether it be like, would they see these people and right away be very scared, like, oh my goodness, the tail's coming up and we're really in danger. They could take our stuff, or is it a what is this? I didn't know these people are here. That's my thing. Like, I didn't get a sense of what their not even their lives were like, but just how they felt about the situation. That's where again, where I said video games, it feels like just UIs and like, you know. Red Dead. It's great to have that, but every once in a while, you'll come to a city and it's just people walk around, do nothing. You could shoot somebody, you could do something, they won't react, and that's what this feels like. And it's different in that because one, Red Dead is a video game, so I give it that passage. But with this, I kind of thought that's one of the main central things to the plot. So maybe I was even expecting the very first time I watched it was it something like they're not supposed to acknowledge the tales, like some sort of class separation. But again, you don't really get that. It's kind of left up to ponder. And I think we talk about this all the time with Saw movies and cliffhanger movies. You got to be careful of what you leave to ponder, right? Because I think there's only so much room the audience, or at least myself, will, okay, I'll give you like 2 or 3 questions, leave that in the air to be like, to leave up for interpretation. But then sometimes you got to answer some things and you can't just leave almost everything up to interpretation. I think this movie, I won't say relies on that, but the ending or a few quotes or a few like quirks rely on that. So
yeah, and it's interesting you say that because like even the kids, like the kids in the classroom in like the upper class area, they're knowledgeable on who these people are at the tail end, and you would think that they would be left in the dark on that of like anybody. So that was
Yeah.
kind of interesting, and like, I guess that's where it becomes kind of weird because it's almost like binary of where high class and bottom class is. Like there isn't really levels to it. Like, does
no.
it kind of feel that way to you guys as well? It feels like there's just kind of two ends of the spectrum. I guess maybe there is middle, like the guy who's working in the water room. He's
Yeah,
well, I don't know. Even he's like he's still eating the same food as them, and he's like going crazy and not really clean and stuff like that. So
yeah, I just don't feel there's that many. Like there is him, but I feel like it's just like we meet Nam and we meet him, but then after that, it's like right after that, it's like even if you're in the swimming pool place, it's like it's pretty good, or even if you're like a child, it's pretty good. It feels like there's like 2 to 3 tries that really got the shit in, and then it contrasts like very quickly. But one thing I would mention, I guess I forgot to mention this, is that if you're interested at all, I don't know if I'll be watching because you know about me and prequels, but they are doing a Snowpiercer TV show. They don't know when it's coming out because now the COVID stuff. It's supposed to come out. It was supposed to come out May 2020, and it's
I thought they were doing a Parasite TV show. What's
they
going on?
they are. So Bong Joon is just getting that TV money, you know. So they're getting
People want
Snowpiercer.
it
They're
now.
doing Parasite. So yeah,
Oh,
if
okay.
anybody, yeah,
They're
if you
doing
hadn't heard
okay.
about this, yeah, if anybody hadn't heard about this, at some point we will be getting a show. It's supposed to come out in May, but I just thought I'd mention that because I kind of forgot to. But so maybe I imagine he has something to do that. Maybe they'll answer that there. Not that this makes the movie any better, but just something if people are really interested, I'm sure they'll get into it because that's what prequels like to do. So and then maybe you'll watch it, and be like, I wish I didn't have that answer, you know.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what you guys were saying though. How just like a lot of the people in the middle, whether they're in like the like the greenhouse cart or just like the party cart, like you really don't know what their everyday lives are, their just their space is like with the tail end passengers, right? Like you have no idea if they hate them, they have no idea if they just despise them, if they feel bad for them. Like I feel like that stuff definitely could have been
Mhm.
touched on more. I definitely agree with what you guys were saying there because like we really only see the tail end and then like the few characters that you guys mentioned as well as like the head
Yeah.
honcho.
It's hard for us to empathize with that side of the spectrum if we just don't have any like point of reference
No,
for what their
exactly.
personalities are like. You know, we just get like these little fragments of details, just these scraps pieced
Yeah.
together.
And I
I
think
like
Um,
you could have got that more Tilda Swinton, but they kill her off, like I'd say relatively earlier, at least halfway through, right? So you could have got
yeah.
more shed throughout, but no, she gets gone pretty quick.
Yeah, I thought she was
yeah.
gonna last longer, honestly. Especially like when she sort of, I mean, just didn't team up with them, but she just like kind of joined their party unwillingly.
hmm So we've kind of been mostly negative so far. I'm gonna shift to something that I thought was really amazing about this movie. So it's interesting. Like obviously there is this tail end of the train and the head of the train, but there's kind of this plot point that's revealed at the end where there's like this communication happening between like the guy who runs it all and then one of the old guys that lives at the back. And he described the guy at the front describes it as like a friendship and he's gonna miss him and stuff like this. And then he talks about how there's like all these almost like coups that are put in place to plan out like population control, right, to make sure there's like a fine balance of how many people like can be sustained on this place. And obviously it's all like under the rug and it's kind of hidden, black marks on it, all this stuff to keep it hidden because I think a lot of people would, well, more people would revolt, even though the people revolting is kind of part of the grand plan. And they even kind of touch on this in the aquarium room. Like Tilda Swinton talks about how there's a very specific amount of fish that can be in there for it to sustain itself, and that's kind of cool. That's like an allegory, so to speak, of the entire
Mm-hmm.
train and what that's like. So
Yeah.
I thought that dynamic was really, really interesting, and how like that's I guess a big question I would have as a viewer is like, how does this all work? Like, does it just kind of work out? And it's like, no, there actually is a lot of work that goes into maintaining the population to make sure it all flows correctly. And the result of that is that a lot of people die and get screwed over and have to destroy each other, and they pit groups against each other. And I thought that part of it was really, really interesting, and probably like my favorite like thought piece out of this whole movie is like that idea of it. And I think that could make for like, that's where I'd love to see a TV show talk about those like the political side of like this living in this train.
Yeah, the cloak and dagger, like conspiracy stuff behind the scenes that we
Mhm.
didn't really like get too much into until like the very end, right? When it's revealed.
Yeah, but even then it's still like, I don't know, it's still just kind of interesting to think about, right? Like, I don't know, like I find that more interesting than like, well, how do they eat, like that's like a very basic survival question. But I think the political stuff is kind of more interesting, and the fact that it kind of is like a loop, in a way, a circle of how the guy at the very front of the train is communicating with someone at the very back to make this stuff happen is interesting.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and I like that, and I think 100% that's the way the plot is. But that's one of the things that I like that I feel they leave in a question sort of stance because they do have Gilm at the very beginning say like, "Oh, I gotta talk to Wilford," blah blah blah. So you kind of establish, okay, there might be some sort of connection, and then Wilford does this whole story. But there's still, I like that they leave enough wiggle room. They show some flashbacks, but what I like, they never directly show Gilm and Wilford interacting or being on the phone. They don't show anything like all the stuff that Wilford is saying is true, but you could also take it as like, is this just him like concocting a great story because he knows that he's fucked because Chris Evans, he's like, other than the kids, like he says, you're the only person to make it through the whole tale. So it's one of these that so far they've had all these attempts, right? The riot, they send Tilda Swinton out there. They say, oh, if you do this, just go back, well, everything will be okay. They've kind of had like 2 to 3 multiple attempts of just turn around and we'll kind of forgive you this and you can just continue living your life at the tail. So to me, it is that, okay, there could be some sort of thing with Gillum at the end, but it could also be that, okay, no, things are really screwed up. What do we do? What can we say to convince this guy? Because at the end of the day, that's what I like. If you have a scene directly of a phone of Ed Harris and John Hurt talking, then right away you go, okay, that is the case. And if you ask me, I say, oh, that I think that was the case because the movie weaves that in enough. But at the same time, you could just say Tilda Swinton's talking about weaving in the controlling population as far as keeping people in the tail and feeding them roaches and stuff like that, which I love that reveal scene because not only is it gross, the CGI is awful in it, but like I love that just that subtle scene of you had that guy who's drawing things and he just says you don't need to draw that, and the guy is like clearly he doesn't have much in this lifestyle because there's nothing to do here and he's drawing all these things, but I love this, like even he knows, a guy that's maybe kind of lost a little bit, like, yeah, I can't draw this because this will just break certain people's spirits. So I love those little things to do with that, but like I said, I also love that there's like a tad kind of leaving up to debate because maybe he was just full of shit, right? And he made that on the spot just to try and hopefully get the upper edge on Chris Evans. So I like leaving things enough. But yeah, I loved all that. I think that's what we kind of talked about at the beginning too. It's similar to Parasite, but in a very different way. But it talks about that kind of the importance of socialism and class and where does it lie and should you be helping others if you've achieved this status and so on and so forth. But I think this is done in a very different, very, like we said, very out there way, but not in a bad way. I think, oh, it's just so over the top, can't believe it. It's just they're using kind of like a Blade Runner or something, like these huge, great sci-fi themes to put forth something that maybe, people wouldn't watch a movie about. Luckily with Parasite they did and won Best Picture, but something for mainstream, you kind of have to maybe put those, things in there. Like Star Wars, it kind of got crazy as we went along, but originally George Lucas had it as like a allegory towards Nazi Germany and stuff like that, right? Lots of sci-fi and fantasy starts from, I want to tell these themes, but if I told them in a regular world, people might not want to see them because it's too realistic to their lifestyles, might remind them of that stuff, but you put this around, torches or lightsabers and whatnot, people might listen to it. And I think all that stuff is done really well. And I think that's one of his strengths is doing like social issues and whatnot. And you should watch Oksha as well if anyone's interested. That has a lot to do with like animal cruelty and whatnot. And that's kind of sometimes got me on the path. I go back and forth sometimes, but when I was like saw that, I was like, okay, I really gotta stop eating meat and stuff like that. Like I think he's really good at hitting a nerve, whatever issue he's tackling in the movie. I think he's really good at that sort of stuff. So
Yeah, that's interesting that you mentioned that. I haven't watched Okja yet, but that is like I wonder if that is an extension of uh if that's like his perspectives or if he's just trying to like explore different like sides of thought because like obviously there is a ton of social commentary here and social class, but then the other theme that really stands strong and is like the leading emotional aspect of the movie is that Chris Evans and his friend Jimmy, that's what his name is, King Kong. What's his name in this movie?
Edgar.
Edgar. Yeah, like that's a very like pro-life sort of storyline, right? Like talking about how
Yeah.
Chris Evans had they'd eaten children and people's arms and people just like the weaker, and they were eating babies, and he was going to eat Edgar, but then he didn't because of Gilliam giving him, I guess, his arm or his leg at that point? I think it was his arm, right?
His
Yeah, it was
arm,
his
yeah.
arm.
Yeah, and because of that, Edgar got to live and became kind of his best friend and his really like his only like loved one in this world, quote unquote, this train. So that's interesting because that's like very strongly a pro life sentiment, and I wonder if that's uh like Bong's stance on that, like I guess political question or ethical question rather, or if he's just like trying to explore different themes within like this world that he sets up.
I
It's
think it
interesting.
for me. I think it is just because like obviously Oksha has that, but I think especially too you got Parasite similar themes and you have that. I think just judging by comments he said and stuff like that, I think this is way that he doesn't feel exactly, but I think maybe what he skews towards and just seems like he's so passionate about. It could be that these are just good themes to explore, which they are. They're universal themes that are going to be talked like class and pro-life and everything. These are things that are going to be talked about even when we're dead, right? So I think they are universal ones. But
Yeah, for sure.
I think just because how passionate he is, I think these are things that are personal to him, whether it's life experience or just he feels very strongly about these issues one way, right? So.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, anything where we want to go to next here? Anything sticking out?
Yeah, I feel like I've kind of been taking this away. So what do you guys
Yeah,
got?
in my quick little like brief overall in the beginning, I mentioned just like the different like color tones that they use like from the beginning when it was super dark and just grimy, and I thought it was gonna be terrible 2 hours of just darkness and I can't see any character. And then they go to like the school, which is just such a vibrant like environment, and it's
Mm-hmm.
just so different than like what you see in the beginning. And then there's what is it? It's like a little bathhouse or something where it's like that yellow, like
Mm-hmm.
where that the head bodyguard like a rise. What's the word
Yeah,
I'm
like
looking for? Like Jason
rose from
Voorhees.
his grave. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
essentially like a sauna room. Yeah.
Yeah, so like that one is just like a really cool, like foggy, misty, like yellow tone. I don't know. I just really like the different just aesthetic that we get throughout the different carts and stuff. I don't know, I really enjoyed that. As well as damn, I didn't write down like which specific scenes the score like grip me in, but there was few that I was like, man, this is such a good score for like what's going
Mm-hmm.
on. I had to write down the note. It was just it stuck. I wish I wrote down what scene it was, but yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty good as well. I agree with the color tones. I think the only thing that takes me out of it is like I was saying, those CGI like outside scenes just
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you
they
there for
hurt my
sure.
eyes a bit. So,
Yeah.
but I mean, I love a good snowy mountain, right?
It
So,
reminded me of those like sci-fi channel like movies that like they don't have like the biggest budgets. So
Yeah.
like the CGI looks really janky.
That's what
yeah,
I
but
think.
I think.
Oh yeah,
Sorry, go ahead,
oh
Trevor.
I was just gonna say I think like I already said already. I think of that with outside, but I get that vibe every time they see that bug reveal, just because it's so. It I wish they didn't show it, or they wish they did a different way, or I wish even what would have been better because like it is bugs, and I get that is super gross. I understand, but it is just like in a way where you have nothing else to eat. I would understand. I almost wish they didn't show. I wish Chris Evans looked and then was like petrified. He shows the other guy and he
Yeah.
says, "You can't say anything about this," and he says, "I won't." And that would be the perfect way, right? Because the guy's not going to draw it, so we would never know what's in there. And it could still, he could have pictured it been bugs. I just think it's because maybe if it looked better, I wouldn't be opposed to it. I like it, but that just always sticks out when I see that. Because the outside stuff doesn't bother me too much. Maybe it's just because we're moving so fast. I think when Nom and his family like looking down at the snow and you see the plane, it's kind of like, okay, I understand. Like it's not the greatest looking, but that one always sticks out with me. But yeah, where do you guys want to go next? Because I want to talk about at the end. Because you guys may miss it at Nom's like dialogue of what his
I'll
plan was or whatnot.
I'll say a quick thing
Yeah.
on. Obviously, I'm dumping on these outside CGI, but I think that's just a testament also to how good the inside of the train looks in general. Like that's something I loved about Parasite and how much of a purist he is as a director, right? Like like building that entire house that's used in that movie, recreating that like most of that street that they use for the lower class family's house. Like that's crazy that they did that to me. And obviously, now that he's got Best Picture of the Year, director,
Oh
all
yeah.
that stuff, he's going to get any budget he ever wants. But I think that he did an amazing job. I mean, 40 million, I think you said, like
Yeah.
that's a lot of money. But even then, like the inside of these trains, like especially the tail end, like those sets are amazing. Like those are really, really well made, and those are like you can tell that they put a lot of effort into making those feel genuine and making it feel really cramped and stuffy, but just enough that they could get their cameras through essentially. So I think they did a great job. And as much as some of the rooms are kind of weird or out of place, like we talked about, I still think that they look great. Just going through them, and it makes like that sequence where you're just going through room to room to room like really really fun, I guess, because you can tell that there was a lot of care put into making those
Mm-hmm.
rooms like genuine, making them for real. So
Yeah, no, and I
thought that
haven't
was cool.
praised it that much, but yeah, I agree with you guys on the everything that set design went on because I think that was kind of my version of praising it. One, the world design as far as like the feel, the look, the characters, what's set up as just like okay, what's happening in this living, breathing world. But again, it all works. I think maybe that's why the rest of the rooms not don't work, but like have a little less kind of polish for us. Is maybe they just put so much into that tail end because they really want that to be the gold standard and to really feel like okay, this is a
Hmm.
grimy place, so they had to put
Yeah,
most of the budget in that. So.
for for
But
sure.
yeah, what I was going to talk about. So at the end there, when they're like we're about to go in, and one, I guess I showed them at the beginning, but I think Chris Evans does a pretty good job here because, like I said, I kind of forget how much range he has. I don't think he's ever like one of the greatest actors of all time, but I think when he needs to do something really good, he can show up and put on a good performance. And I think his best performance is like clearly it's that scene he gives with Non there, just like what he had to do and just like the terrible dialogue, like terrible in a good way, of like him talking about how like the kids and the babies, he knows that babies taste better than people and stuff like that. Like, and it to me, it's good because it's. I remember even watching again this time, you are cheering for him in a sense because he's fighting for the people, but at the same time when he says all this stuff, I always kind of turn against him and I go like, I don't like you're my protagonist, but I'm not really with you anymore, you know, like and I get it, the point is that he's redeeming himself, but it's just still like he did like quite a few bad things and he's eating innocent people and he's killing mothers of like babies and stuff like that. So it is a thing where it's like all characters have this redemption pass, but every time he tells that story, I'm kind of like, oh fuck this guy. I hope the rest of the people make it out, and we'll talk about that. But yeah, his thing is so every time they go past that uh, wherever that bridge where they do the Happy New Year, which I love that scene. Where they all pause again. That to me is like the weird kooky stuff in the world that I like because it's like it's something to do with their rules. It wasn't. It had a humor sense to it, but it wasn't too like. I guess it worked for me just because all these people are a little bit weird, where opposed to the camera making some weird choices. But like I said, I did like that set piece. I liked all the guys wearing the black and leather. I thought it was creepy. The axes made sense. You don't want people to get guns. But so anytime they went past there, this is where we can talk about too. And they're talking about, or we're talking about like what is his situation exactly. He says always when they go past, he looks down to see because he at one point like noticed the plane, and every year they go back there, he notices the plane is more and more melted away. So that's his sign that it's getting warmer outside and it would be safe to live out there. So that's why his plan
Yeah,
is that.
that's a big one.
Yes, yeah. So what his thing was is he's keeping that drugs, and he says not only. I like that Chris Evans like he calls him on about doing the drugs, and he's talking about him keeping this because when you get the stuff all together, I'm sure you know like figure this one out. You can put it together and it's a bomb. But he still emphasizes that he still uses them as drugs. So it's not like because every time he does them all, like oh it is just for bombs. Like no, he's still kind of a drug addict. But so that was his plan was to get to this because Chris Evans was like my plan was to get to this door. His plan was to get to that door so he could blow it open, and he thinks that because Evan says like you're gonna freeze out there, but he just kind of is talking about like what's worse than inside here, right? Like it's kind of it might be death, but it could be a whole new world. And they had that shot of when the snowflake is coming. So that was him. That was his plan. He wanted to bust out of there, and because he thought there's a chance it's getting warmer and livable. I think still a very risky plan because not like okay, one it might be getting warm, but still like it's still gonna be pretty cold out there. And then two, it's just I don't know what life there is out there. I'm not again saying I think he's right and the train is a shitty life, so I get that point. But just out there, I think is very very risky as well.
But like the girl Yona and the little boy, like they're still gonna die at the end of the movie,
Oh yeah.
right?
Oh yeah, that polar bear is eyeing them up.
I don't know. I didn't take it that way. I took it as just like
Well, they put that guy's arm outside for 7 minutes and it froze solid. Like they're like you have to imagine it's the same around the world. Like, and I guess maybe not. Maybe that where that plane is. But like
Well,
even then, it's not like they're that far from that plane. If it goes around the entire world in 1 year, then they're only a
it
few
was 7 minutes
kilometers
at a
away.
high velocity of speed though, right? And it's like nighttime, and they also put lotion on that arm, so it's like the same thing if you walked outside in the winter,
Yeah.
just regular, opposed to if you had a shower and then
Well,
walked outside, you'd get sicker, right?
but
So.
even then, it's not like them getting out of the train at the end in those mountains. Like it's not like there's a hotel around the corner with
Oh, I know.
heating. Like,
Yeah. But I
yeah.
guess, but that's what I ask you. What's the choices would you have if you're at the tail or near the end of the tail, or you have the chance to go outside? You may die, but you're not on the tail where you could just get your hands broken by security. You could be like your child could be plucked from you. Like that's what I ask you. Like, what route do you go? Because I
Well,
agree with all that, but then at the same point, I go, yeah, living there might be a hellhole, so it might be better to just try and see if there's a life out there. I don't know.
but like since we're at the end of the movie, and like, are those the only two remaining humans in the world?
I don't think so. I think one, not everybody on that train's dead. I know it crashed, but I think a lot of people are unconscious and they're just probably the first ones to get up. So I think you may have some of those people. And two, I get like if we believe the plot, like or like the synopsis at the beginning, the train is the only people, right? Maybe there's some other clans out there that have found a way to live, but if that's not the case, it is just the train
well,
people.
doesn't the text at the start of the movie say that the only people left on Earth are in the train.
Yeah, exactly. So unless the narrator's a
Yeah.
unreliable texter or
I see what
whatever,
you mean.
yeah,
Well,
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
it's not like that's a character though in the story.
No,
So
I agree. Yeah,
I have to take that for truth, right?
yeah.
I don't know. I mean, like of the because there was only like 4 or 5 train cars at the front that made it through that mountain. The rest of them, those people are all dead. Like everyone on the tail's
Yeah.
dead for sure because it fell off a cliff. I guess, yeah, I guess some people could have survived in the front trains, like the ones that were in that bridge train car. Um,
Chris Evans is dead.
but yeah, I mean, I kind of think that they're all dead except for those two. That's the way I take it, at least.
Yeah,
Or
that's
that's the way it hit me. And I mean, they're kind of dead too. But
just eyeballing them. Like
I don't
yeah,
think the
I
polar
guess
bear.
I don't think the
I
polar
will-
bear's gonna eat them.
No,
I
I
don't
don't think that's what I took from it. No.
convinced. I'm convinced. He's a monster.
I mean, maybe he will. I don't think it really. I don't think it really matters. I think
I don't
I mean, the point is that the polar bear is out there big chilling, and he's enjoying himself. He's living,
because he
and
knows he's got a big meal ahead of him. That's why he's
yeah,
big
exactly.
time.
Whereas if
Yeah.
you look at if it was like the current world that we're on and this CW whatever thing that froze the world didn't happen, uh, but in 17 years, like we might not have polar bears anymore. And
Yeah.
that's
True.
really sad, but it's probably gonna be the case. And unless we make some changes as a planet. But I thought that was pretty poignant that there was a polar bear, and like that was that was not on like some ice cap, right? Like that was at the top of a mountain. That polar bear was big chilling.
Hollywood Hills, probably.
Hollywood. I don't know
On
about
the
that.
sign. Look, we can live in the O. We can live in the O. See, the way I took it as like they might die, and we gotta think, okay, realistically they might die. But in the movie world, the reason why I thought they might survive, there could be others, is just to be into showing seeing the polar bear is that kind of like, okay, there is life after, like there is just like physical things living out
Yeah.
there. And I think it's also to show that, oh look, this creature, yes, it's a polar bear. It lives in colder conditions, of course, but I just take it as like, look, this thing's out here living and it's free. We could be that, and that's what I take from it. That's like a hopeful ending. That yes, it's cold. There's all these struggles, but they're not on this train anymore, and it's gonna be tough and it's gonna be cold. But these people, whether it's just even these two, because that girl, yeah, she is younger, but I still feel like she's old enough that she could. And the way they don't say this in the movie, but at one point when Chris Evans asked her if she's like clairvoyant or whatnot, the reason she's like that is the filmmaker said, like the whole team or whatever, whoever, I don't know who the interview was, just the filmmakers in my trivia said that the reason she could hear that is because living in the train, these kids have like acquired or grown up with like an animal-like sense of reflexes and instincts and stuff like that. So that's why even this person, that maybe if it's not like a sci-fi where she's clairvoyant, maybe just her new skills of having to survive could make her get past this sort of situation. So that's why in our world, yeah, I think if us three crash this train and it's just us, I'm not liking our chances. But in this like hypersensitive, like this girl has animal instincts, this boy's been through a lot, and there's a hopeful like if we get out and we see this polar bear, we're living, but we wouldn't see a polar bear. So I take it as some way they're gonna make it out. But again,
And
the TV show's not gonna answer because the TV show's a prequel. So it's up to
Yeah.
you to decide, right? Maybe Kirkland's right. Maybe the polar bear just fucking devours him right there, and that's the end of the movie.
well, something I just remembered is that she does have the matchbook, so she does have some
Mm-hmm.
way to make some fire, and
Oh yeah.
that's certainly helpful in this particular case. And I mean, she can even go rifle through the rest of those trains that are accessible to get some more stuff. So
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
because if they're
there's a
dead,
chance.
lots of food, lots of stuff, lots of people to
Oh yeah,
eat.
just go eat Chris Evans.
Yeah,
Why not?
yeah.
That's
See,
America's ass right there,
that's where the polar bear, they can easily just like the polar bear, like, look, you could take us to, or there's a buffet right there, like they'll be fine.
Yeah, and like even if they want to fight that polar bear, they got like axes, and
Yep.
apparently they do actually have guns, so they have guns as well. Although I don't like that. That's not a hopeful ending. I want the polar bear. I want that polar bear to live. I want him to just go the other way, find some other food, and they go the other way.
I
and
want him to offer them to ride on him. Like he's like a friendly, like imagine if the movie
Yeah.
ended and they looked at the polar bear and the polar bear went, "Hello, people," and it just ended right there. Like it's like a Plan the Eighth sort of deal, and the polar bear could talk. You're like, "Oh my God, look what's happened in
Just
these
Andy
years."
Serkis. Like,
Yeah. That's what I would like to think, that the polar bear gave them a ride through to the airplane. There's like a whole nother people living in the airplane. Hey, what's up? I'm Chris Evans' brother, and stuff like that.
He
I
like
have a-
speaks Korean, so there's no subtitles.
Yeah.
So I have no idea.
Oh, perfect.
no, the translator like works on polar bear for some reason. He growls. It's like
Yeah.
perfect
Super
English.
quiet. Super quiet to hear.
This tool's really good.
Travis, I have a question for you. So I wasn't on this cast, but recently you got your dynamic duo boys, Kyle and Liam
Yeah.
together, and you guys reviewed Day After Tomorrow. Were you getting some Day After Tomorrow vibes with this movie?
Oh, 100%. Even in the thumbnail that I've made for this, like for the YouTube version, it's just like a picture. It looks exactly like the Day After Tomorrow thumbnail. And I'm like, I may have to change that because it looks
funny.
identical. So, yeah, I would say luckily the science is a bit better in this movie because the science is all like, it's like, oh, this happened after all this. So it makes sense because the world makes it make sense. But it really was. And funny in my trivia, Jake Gyllenhaal was one of the people up for the main character role.
Oh
So
yeah.
you really could have made it like a real. You could honestly still find a way to make this a sequel to Day After Tomorrow, like the same continuity. But if he was in this movie, you could have totally said it was a sequel to Day After Tomorrow.
That's funny.
Yeah.
I love. It's funny. I listen to your guys' cast on that. Go check it out. It's a really fun episode. And like I haven't watched that movie in forever, but like traditionally and in my mind's eye, I love that movie, but I haven't watched it, and it kind of sound. I'm gonna take Liam's advice and not watch it to not to ruin my, ruin my perspective. I love the prequels until we rewatch them
Yeah.
for the podcast, and then well, I still love them, but
For other reasons.
yeah.
So
other
this
reasons.
is one thing I was gonna ask you with Chris Evans. What I did like, not that I didn't like, and I guess this is kind of, yeah. I don't know how I feel about this. But I want to talk about you guys. So we get this whole revelation if it is true, but like I said, I kind of work on that base to that. Okay, Gillum and Wilford had this plan that Chris Evans was the new chosen one, right? They're looking for a guy to take over Wilford's spot to be the runner of the top of the tail end or whatever, just the top of the tail, and he's going to be the guy that he's alone, but he gets his stakes and all this stuff and blah
Right.
blah. And I really love that scene when he's like, you're going to be alone and just remember this because when was the last time you can remember being alone? I like Chris Evans just bring down because you have to think after all this where he's living. It is just like it's such a subtle, small little line, but it is just like this character. You think about his perspective. Yeah, he's probably not been just alone by himself for almost 2 decades, right? So I loved everything that was going on there, but I feel they kind of took the choice away from him as far as like he makes a choice. Clearly he rebels, right? But I feel like it's because of all these other circumstances of there's a war going on in the other talents and it kind of trickles over, and then a character he knows comes in and he punches Wilford, moves on. I wish he made that choice. It reminds me a lot of Guardians 2 where Quill is under this trance and he's what's his name, Ego's talking about how they're going to take over the planets, and he's kind of agreeing with him until he's like, and then I gave your mom cancer, and then right away he shoots him. So to me it's always been like, was he agreeing with them, or just because he killed his mom is he not agreeing with them anymore? And I wish we got a bit more of a definitive Chris Evans, like, I'm not doing this. I felt like it was kind of forced in a way where it's just like, okay, all his friends are dying and he makes this choice. But I think it was like just a little too subtle for me. But I did like the entire scene. Not the kind of the explanation plot dump, but I liked the look of it. I liked just the intensity. Yeah, the girl with the gun back there. But I liked most of Chris Evans' acting in that later half of deciding what he's going to do. I just wish we even got to see him emote that. And I like the parallels to he loses his arm, right? Because he talks about in the story how many times he went to cut off his arm and he just couldn't do it. He couldn't be that guy. But then I like that to save some of these people on this train, he has to cut off his arm. So some good stuff there. But I was just wondering with that choice and whatnot, if you guys felt the same way or if it was more clear for you guys or what.
Well, quickly, I thought it was like he mentions too that he doesn't remember anything. Like from like she asks
Yeah.
him what he remembers of old
Earth.
Earth.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he says he doesn't remember anything. So I don't know if that's I don't know if he literally means that or if he's just like packaged it all away or if they gave them some sort of drug to like erase their memory somewhat
Those
or like
protein bricks.
yeah, the protein bricks. Like, I don't know if it like maybe makes their memories foggy, or I guess after 17 years, like, I don't know. Maybe you just, I mean, what can I remember from 17 years ago? I don't know. I couldn't give you a moment. Maybe I
Yeah.
can, but maybe I'm just thinking about a family photograph and not an actual genuine moment that happened. So without that stuff, like that one character comments, he's like, "Oh, what does steak smell like again?" Like, who
Yeah.
knows? Maybe if you don't have those things to keep reminding you, maybe you
True.
do just completely lose those memories. I'm not sure. Plus, it's pretty traumatizing. But
Especially if
uh,
you're in like an environment that's like so
mhm,
isolated, right? Like you're just locked in a tin can with a bunch of people. And like you mentioned before, like
yeah,
you have not been alone. You haven't been outside in
yeah.
like
There's no
who know like
reprieve whatsoever.
17 years, I think it was. So it's crazy.
Yeah. I I thought the whole I agree with you on the acting part of Chris Evans. I think he does really good in that moment. I love when he's just in the chamber and he's just breaking down, and whether or not he, I don't know, like I'm guessing it's just makeup under his eyes, but he has just these massive bags under his
Mhm.
eyes, and he's just like breaking down. I think it's a really powerful scene. I love that the other guy's just like sitting there on the outside, just like he just knows exactly what that moment is. And in a weird way, it almost felt like it was supposed to be like a cyclical thing, but it obviously that guy's the first, right? Or like he's
Yeah.
the creator of it, and he's the only one who's had this position. So I don't know. I guess I found that interesting, or maybe he wasn't. I mean, I have to assume he was, but well, I guess was the train operational before the world went to shit, or did it just go into effect like when the frost thing came down?
No, I think it was. I think it was already going because
Yeah.
when they mentioned like when they're in the school and they're
Mhm.
watching that video, it's like he was being
Yeah.
ridiculed for this idea, and then like
Right.
yeah, exactly.
But he still is the creator and the first guy,
Yeah,
really. So he's probably been in that chamber for a long time. But
Good
yeah, I don't know.
minute.
I thought I guess I for a moment didn't know what he was gonna do. I was kind of hoping he would rebel just because I wanted to see what that world would look like more
Mhm.
than the world where he just. I almost feel like it would have been a bit of a cop out, or that whole journey would have been for nothing. But then it almost plays into like the villain, the quote unquote villain of this movie, right? Because so much of that was planned for, and he does say that some of the stuff went off the rails, but it seems like he has that plan A, B, C, D all the way to Z, right? Of like what could possibly happen here and what's the thing to do. It's like a very calculated thing. So I don't know. I like the emotional moment, and I think it hit for me. I think the ending, it really all came together really well for me, and most of my like complaints were just random trickled things through the middle or just like the action. But I think the emotional stuff and the story beats, especially at the end, really were really punctuated for me.
Nice, Kirkland.
yeah. I agree with you guys. I like the Chris Evans like emotional performance. I thought it was just top notch. I don't know. It is weird seeing him in just like stuff that's not Captain America roles. Even though I've seen like Knives Out and like Travis, you were listing off some other movies he was in. I can't think of
That is a
The
cool.
other than
Losers, Fantastic
yeah,
Four,
Losers. That
Knives
was the one I was
Out.
thinking of. I remember watching that movie and I like I don't know. I just didn't really hear anyone talking about it. And I was like, man, it's actually a pretty good movie, and Chris Evans is pretty good in it. But that's besides the point. I think he's just a great actor, and he was definitely selling that scene for me. And like the whole um like his making the decision of like punching, I forget the guy's name.
Wilford.
Wilford?
Wilford.
Is that what it is? Wilford?
Wilford, yeah, like the
Wilford, yeah.
show Wilford. Everyone go watch Wilford with Elijah Wood. He talks to imaginary dog. It's great.
Oh god, I've seen a few episodes of that.
It's so fucking good.
It's all right. Yeah. It's all right. Anyways, I thought it was all right. It didn't seem. I don't know. I felt like it was fairly inevitable for him to like just like end the whole train thing and like not take the throne because especially when he was just spilling his guts to fucking what's the name Han. I want to
Nam.
say Han, but I'm thinking of like Fast and Furious, and I feel like that's not right.
His full name is Nam Gone, but they kept calling
Oh,
him Nam. Yeah,
Nam.
Nam in the movie. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So when he was spilling his guts to like Nam, and I felt like that was kind of like point of no return for that character. Even though like you're already kind of rooting for him the whole movie, and then he is revealing he did some dark things, and I feel like he just wouldn't be able to live with that. So like I felt like his story was pretty much rounding out. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't see him making it through the end of this movie. I thought he was for sure gonna die. Um, but so yeah, and so when he punches Wilford and because he mentions like the kid thing, just very like insensitive, and it seemed like he was really like choked up about the whole. I mean, he was fucking eating kids at one point. It's pretty
Yeah.
dark.
Oh,
I feel like it'd be tough to
that's
live
the
with that.
darkest timeline, I
Yeah.
would
Yeah, they don't
say.
erase that memory.
No,
There is yet.
No,
you remember what
exactly.
babies taste like.
Not steaks though.
I remember what. No, not steaks, but I remember what your mother tastes like, Edward
Yeah.
or
Oh,
Edgar. Yeah.
jeez. So yeah, like overall, I thought that was all right. I did like a lot of like just the mind blow at the end. I feel like whenever movies have that, whether it's like a movie like The Prestige or
Mm-hmm.
just like other movies that have like a big reveal at the end and it kind of like ties everything together, it's just I don't know. It works for me. I usually give a pass over movies like that, no
Yeah.
matter how bad it is through the journey. Um, but
Shouts
yeah,
to
so
Saw. Saw
Oh
I've
yeah.
I've seen the first. I've not seen any other Saws.
Uh,
Yeah.
I think I think for me, I think I hit on everything as far as notes and whatnot. I'm trying.
Yeah,
I'm trying
I
to
have
think, but
one.
yeah.
I have one last note. It's just a quick thing, but I just thought it was a cool detail. So that when they're talking about like the exposition scene, they're explaining everything, and like it was exposition, but it did explain everything. But one thing I thought was cool is that they're talking about the train and how it goes throughout the entire world, and you see like a little map of the path it takes. And I just thought that was a cool, like, I don't know, I guess it was a nice metaphor that these social class issues, these societal issues, these ethical questions, like they exist all over the world. And I think that's an interesting point from Bong, who's he's from South Korea, making movies there, but with this movie in particular, a bunch of American actors, and so he's probably been around the world and done some traveling. And I'm guessing that some of these things he wants to comment on social class are like a very worldly view, not just from his home of South Korea. I think he's from South Korea originally. I just assumed that. My bad. But wherever he's been, like I guess it seems like he sees these issues all over the place. And I thought that the fact that the plane or not the plane, the train goes around the entire Earth, through all these different countries and continents, I thought that was a really cool little point to comment on how it's the same everywhere, and we're all fighting the same things, in a lot of like grand scheme sort of sense. So
Mm.
that was kind of my last note, but I'm down for some trivia if we're
He
ready.
yeah, he is South Korean too, so there you go.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Daegu.
Let me see. Yeah, so yeah, I got a few. This one didn't have like too many juicy ones like, oh, this cast and stuff, because it's a pretty smaller movie, right? But so if you guys remember, right before you have the big brawl with the axes and everything, the fish scene where they take the fish out and gut and everything like that, kind of send a message. You remember that?
Yeah, I thought that was a little
Mhm.
random.
Well, two
I didn't really
things.
understand.
One, the writer and director Bon Joon had said the fishing was inspired by The Godfather. The Godfather is kind of they use a horse's head in a similar way of don't cross a certain line or this is gonna be you. So it's kind of like, oh, you don't want to wake up with a horse's bed in your or a horse's bed in your head,
Horse's bed
a
in my
horse's
head.
head
Yeah,
in
we're
your
not.
bed. So I think
Yeah.
that's kind of what he's going for. Is like, this is the fish. This is you. This knife is us. If you cross this line, there's point no return. So
It would have been pretty weird if that was a horse in this movie.
there's just this guy trying to hold this live horse, like moving around, trying to send a message. But the other trivia is, so this has to do with a piece of shit. But either way, director Bon Joon-ho often clashed with producer Harvey Weinstein, said piece of shit, who frequently interfered in order to create his vision of the movie. Among the many requests, the producer insisted having the fish scene removed in favor of more action. So he would want to just right when they got in there, the action to start right away. Bon, who considered it his favorite shot of the film, was adamant to keep it in. He told the producer that he wanted to keep it in for a shot for personal reason, as it was a tribute to his late father, who was a fisherman. Upon hearing this, Weinstein said that the family is important to him, so he granted Bong to keep the shot. In an interview, the director said, "It was a fucking lie. My father is no fisherman."
That's hilarious. I was gonna say, like, if someone was like, "Oh, like, I think you should take it out," I would totally like make something up like that. Be like, man, that fish was tied with me from when I was
Yep.
born.
Yeah, it's my son.
Yeah, so yeah, complete lie to get that in there. So
That's
shouts to
awesome.
Bond. Yeah. So
Fun.
there was
Swapping game
there
stuff.
was no additional lighting used with the filming of the torchlight fight scene. So when they call for fire, everything like that was all just the pure torches. So that's pretty cool.
Wow, that's cool.
But, well, I guess I'm curious about that set then, because that's probably a train inside of a studio, right? Like train cars
I
inside of
would
a
imagine
studio.
so. Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe they had all the lights off in the studio as well. That would be going through the windows.
Yeah.
But yeah, cool.
Possibly. Which also I have to shout, that scene obviously is already weird, but when the night goggles go on, that's a fucking weird ass, like kind of creepy scene, like we're getting the perspective of them. We literally, talking about the video game, we literally get a couple scenes of a guy like first point of view, like Call of Duty Warzone style, where he's just walking around with a gun looking for people. So just a very unsettling, that whole like set piece
You get
for
like
me.
the
But
first person view, yeah.
yeah, it
Yeah,
was
it reminded me of
creepy.
like Silence of the Lambs when
Yeah.
like Buffalo Bill has the night vision goggles.
Oh, was she a great big
I
person?
also felt like that kind of dragged on a little bit longer. Like I feel like if all the lights are off and everyone that has a weapon has night vision goggles, I feel like they could have just went them like
Yeah.
really fast.
They kind of acted like fucking idiots. Like they almost looked like they still couldn't see them, like they were half working out, because they are still like looking around quite a bit. But it's like practically you should be able to see them pretty well. So I
Yeah.
kind of agree with you there. But
And it's not like there's like a disproportionate amount of people. Like there's a ton of dudes
oh yeah,
in the suits
Yeah.
with the masks. So yeah.
and it's not like they did anything to outsmart them, right? Like they did bring the torchlight, and they do say, "Oh, that was smart," but they didn't have it ready to go right away. It took a little while for them to get
Yeah,
down
they
there,
run
but
through like multiple train cars to get there.
yeah, which I shout out at the beginning, but now that we're in spoilers, I loved the actual breaking in of waiting for the right moment, and they all just take this heave, like this huge chunk of metal, and just a bunch of people run, and Chris
Yeah,
Evans jumped
I
off.
love it
I
too.
love that, and just the cinematography, the shooting of the pole, like the intensity of almost getting there before the door closes. Loved everything about that. So,
Same.
the writer and director Bong Joon had reservations about casting Chris Evans in the lead role because his muscular physique. He felt as a resident of the extremely poverty-stricken tail section, Chris should not be extremely physical fit. Cautioning and careful camera angles were kept from his physique from showing, which makes sense because I feel like every time I've seen the movie or poster, the amount of layers that Chris Evans has on in this movie is just quite a bit. But I think they do a pretty good job. I still think he is kind of like a bit of a beefier guy, but at least Evans brings it acting wise that you kind of just can
Yeah,
hand wave it.
that is really interesting. I didn't consciously pick up on that, but now I think back, yeah, like I think they did a great job of making him look kind of sickly and a little
Yeah.
bit weak, especially considering this is when he is Cap.
Oh yeah, this is in the
Yeah,
middle of
for
it.
sure.
Yeah.
He probably
Especially,
recorded some MCU movie like within a few months of this. So
I feel like if he didn't have his beard and like he had like a full face, it definitely would have seemed a little like out of whack. Maybe he's just scarfing down those protein bars. He's getting thick.
Yeah. Well, if you think about it, this
Those
movie
buds.
came out a year after Avengers, so it was probably filming 2012 when Avengers came out, which means like
Yeah.
like they were pretty close in between when
Yeah.
and he was pretty jacked for those movies, right? So
For
yeah,
sure.
they did a good job. And then let's see, my last few notes here. Edgar was named after director Edgar Wright, and then Sir John Hurt's character's name Gilliam is a homage to Terry Gilliam, a director whose filmography includes similarly bleak science fiction, fantasy, end of the world type like titles such as Brazil, 12 Monkeys, and the Zero Theorism. I've not seen Brazil and Zero, but 12 Monkeys I'd recommend.
12
It's
Monkeys, so
yeah,
good.
it's Brad Pitt and Bruce Willis. Really good, kind of weird apocalyptic time travel movie. Brad Pitt's one of his like weirdest, like best roles, but man, he's fucking kooky in it. I remember that's almost one I'd love to do for the podcast one time because I remember when I first watched it, I was not a big fan, and I've grown to like it more over the years. Taron Gilliam is like a really stylized director. He makes some really different type of stuff nowadays. So obviously he's a big fan of that. As I
Cool.
said earlier, Jake Gyllenhaal was up for I imagine the main role, and then also Dustin Hoffman auditioned for this movie. I don't know what for, and I doubt the role is for. I mean, I imagine it's for Gilliam. I think this trivia is a little wrong when it says he auditioned for. I think maybe he was considered or in talks. I don't think Dustin Hoffman is auditioning at any point of his life. He's like a 2-time Academy Award winner, so I don't think he's going to Bong Joon-ho, who's like, unless he's like a massive fan. But just kind of the same thing with Jake Gyllenhaal. I think if he won, he probably could have got it. But in my last part here, Bong Joon-ho originally wrote the part for Mason with John C. Reilly in mind, but then adapted the character for Tilda Swinton, though he intentionally left
Wow.
lines of Mason being referred to in a masculine form in the script, which show up in the movie. So yeah, it was originally John C. Reilly meant for that role.
That is fucking
So,
wild.
sorry, for which character?
For Mason, the Tilda Swinton one.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Very
that's
different, very different character in my opinion.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and if you ever
That's
want to see
crazy.
them do anything, they need to the main guy is kind of choking people out nowadays. But we need to talk about Kevin with Ezra Miller, her, and John C. Reilly. Definitely check that out. It's a great movie about like a kind of teen sociopath and whatnot. So yeah, I will start off. I really enjoyed this movie. I enjoyed it the second time when I watched it. I was always like, this time I was like, why have I not watched this movie again? I think it is kind of what I said at the beginning, where it is a bit more bleaker. It is. I really like the movie, but it's not one of my favorite movies I've seen in the past decades. But I think it's just really ambitious as far as what they're going for. So it's definitely a movie I will watch again in the future because I, even on a second watch, enjoyed it quite a bit. So I think it was one of those I was wondered, oh, maybe it won't hold up, and it did, or not hold up as well. So yeah, I really like it. I like his work. I would give this an 8 out of 10 for myself personally.
Cool. Yeah, I don't know. I think this is a very it is a very strange and weird movie, but I think there is a certain audience. Like if you were one of those people that watched Platform recently and listened to our review, like it's definitely like I don't know. I think you should have watched the movie before listening to our review. hopefully
Yeah.
hopefully you went and did that before getting this far. But yeah, like I definitely recommended this movie to that. Or if you're into Saw, not for like the traps, but because of like the big plot twists or like the gritty kind of darker world, like I think this movie definitely fits nicely in with those kind of movies, which is kind of weird because Parasite, another work from this director, is kind of nothing like those in a sense. So yeah, I really enjoyed this movie. I've been anticipating it for a couple months, and it definitely lived up to my hype. I think I'll go to Okja next. That's probably the next one I'll watch of his. But then there's one that I really want to watch. What's it called?
The
It's
Host,
no, it's an earlier one. It's called Murder something.
Memories of a
Murder.
Murder, or
Yeah,
Memories of a Murder. Yep.
is that what it's called?
Yeah, it's on his notable work here on Wikipedia. I've never
Yeah,
seen it,
Memories
but
of Murder. Yeah,
yeah.
you're right. In 2003, I really want to watch that one. That one seems really interesting to me, and I think that
Oh
that same
yeah.
actor is in it as well. Yeah,
Yeah, he
Kang Ho
works with him a
Song.
lot. Yeah, Sang-Guhan. Yeah, he's maybe the world's not ready for it, which they shouldn't be, and maybe he's not ready for it because I don't know how well English is his language. But I want that guy to be Doc Ock so fucking bad. Like I just think he
That
would
would
be.
be so
He'd
cool.
be perfect. And Kirkland, you'll get a more appreciation for it. You might think, oh, like he'd be fine. When you watch Parasite, you'll walk out and he'll be like one of your new favorite actors. He is just like so.
He's in Parasite. The
Yeah,
same
yeah.
guy?
He's like has a
Oh,
really
okay.
big chunky role. He's one of the main characters, and
Yeah.
he's like to me should have been nominated for
He's
award.
so
I think he
good.
could have even
I
won it.
agree.
Like he's so good. So yeah, I really want him as Doc Ock, just because I feel like he always brings this sense of, especially you'll see in Kirkland Parasite, like he brings this sense of like a lovable, like he could be your father figure, but also just like he could turn scary on a dime and not trustworthy, and you don't want to mess with this guy, even though he's like just this kind of, he's not a huge looking man. It's just his presence that he brings with him.
He's very
Yeah.
charismatic.
Yeah, that's my fan cast that I really
That's
want.
cool.
Again,
Yeah.
he might not know much English, so it might be a non-issue. But if he
Dude,
does, oh yeah,
subtitles. The world is ready for
Dude,
oh
subtitles.
yeah,
Penny
yeah.
Parker. Come on. Go up
Oh,
against Penny Parker.
yeah. Maybe that's one of Sony's one. They're gonna do one of those like Spider Verse movies. In there you go. But yeah,
The Korean Doc
I
Ock.
agree.
Dude, I'm down.
Yeah.
Why not?
And dude, I just love his voice. Like
Oh,
he
yeah.
doesn't talk too commandingly in this movie. It's not the character, but like especially in Parasite, I just love his voice. It's such a sick voice. So yeah, no, definitely recommend this movie. I think it's really good. I think Bong Joon-ho makes really awesome stuff from my 2 movies I've seen of his, and I'm definitely gonna grind through some more during this quarantine time.
Mhm.
So what do you think, Kirkland? Final thoughts,
Yeah.
rating?
So yeah, I definitely want to rewatch this movie. I'll probably like do the Bong. Let me read his name. Bong Joon Ho.
Yeah,
Is
Bong
that-
Joon Ho. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna do the little tour of his movie.
The
Shane, I
tour.
definitely wanted to watch Okja. I didn't even realize it was directed by him. Actually, I just saw it on Netflix when it got added. I think it was like a couple years
Yeah,
ago now.
he's like writer director on all these
Yeah.
movies. I'm pretty
Yeah,
sure.
and then Parasite, like I've said, I have not heard a single negative thing about that movie, so I'm definitely excited to check it out. A buddy of mine actually has the Blu-ray, so he's gonna lend it to me, so I'll check
Oh,
it
the
out there.
Blu-ray.
So I will have subtitles, unlike I did for this movie.
Yeah, you
I'm
need him for that movie.
Yeah. That'd be a wild
No way to watch
experience.
that movie.
Actually, yeah, watch without subtitles and get back to us and tell us what
Yeah,
you
there's
thought.
like
I'll
there's
do
like
a
maybe
review.
20 words in English. Like, you
Yeah,
gotta
and they're all like, no.
They're all, like, names or something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think I'm gonna give this one a 7 out of 10. I'm hesitant to give it too many I don't know, higher points than that, just because I missed quite a few things that were said from that one actor because I just didn't have subtitles, unfortunately. And then there was just a few scenes that weren't really like appealing to me. That was just whether it be like the CGI or the lighting or whatever it was, might just been like the combination of everything. I was just taken out of a few of those scenes. It
Mhm.
definitely won me back though, like when in the big reveal near the end. And I did like I really liked about half of the action scenes, so that definitely is enough to carry me in. And it's not like all the action scenes were like together. It would be like an action scene that I really liked, and then one that was kind of wishy washy, and then another one that I really liked. So it kind of was sprinkled in there. So it's
Mhm.
not like they were all at the beginning and then I was out of it for the later half.
Yeah.
So it was enjoyable enough. I think I'm gonna watch it like with someone though. Just
Mhm.
because I don't know, it's fun to introduce a movie like this to another person that hasn't seen it, and I know like their taste, so I know that they would at least get some enjoyment out of it. And then obviously watching it again for me, I would get some new things and then hopefully enjoy it more. So right now I'm gonna give it a 7/10. I will definitely be rewatching it though, and hopefully it'll be a higher review after that.
Yeah,
Not saying I'm doing a review for the second watch, but
next year we expect it. What is it? Yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, and I also think if you watch Parasite and you watch that with Shay, I think she'll enjoy it. Not that because everybody says a bad thing, but I think it's I don't, I think it's a bit more accessible. Even though yeah, you got subtitles, it's just a pretty universal movie. So
Yeah.
I think you'll both enjoy that.
For sure. Her review for this is definitely totally fraudulent. You can't take it for her. 'Cause she was playing Animal Crossing the entire time. She was missing like all the
That's true.
important plot points.
You guys got anything to say before we get out of here?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
This train's leaving the station, isn't it?
Yep.
Hey, let's go.
Yeah,
Off the rails.
ladies and gentlemen, if you like what we do, like I said, it's in the description down below, all the audio video feeds. Go back in our past feeds. We got tons of reviews and episodes. Me and Taylor are reviewing Clone Wars weekly. We got some other stuff cooking in the Geekverse that we'll be excited to
Oh, yeah.
announce. So yeah, just stay tuned. Might be a new show here too. So, and we're still gonna keep doing this. If you have a movie, like I said, come recommend it. If not, we're not gonna reveal what, but we've picked out some franchises that maybe we'll be talking about Chris Evans again in the near future here in the next few weeks. Maybe there might be a certain team that we might be talking about because stuff is light, so we want to talk about some big
I
franchise.
wonder what you're hinting at.
The Losers, of course, the Losers. That's
Yes, of
another
course.
DC movie. So, but yeah, we got tons of stuff on the books. So, thank you very much for tuning in. When you hear from us next time, it'll not be boring.
Later.
Leave.